A very good day to you all. Let me start by welcoming you, especially the new ones among us, to Bayero University Kano, a prestigious center of learning. On this note, I want to congratulate the newly admitted ones for being among the few successful ones that have been admitted. And I hope you will make good use of this opportunity. My name is Hayatuddin Adamu, and I am here to discuss the use of library, an important module among the different courses of GSP. As you will be aware in other courses that you shall be taking under the GSP general programs, you will be taught about the general studying skills. Just as the human personality varies, this is how we also have different studying skills that apply to different individuals. Meaning that student A might choose to study in a different way. If student B tries to apply that same way student A used, it may not naturally apply. Meaning that there are different studying skills or studying method. Each student is expected to identify the method that best applies to them and make good use of it to achieve their objective. Having understood this, in the course of your study, you're also going to realize that different students use different studying methods in order to achieve their objective. However, irrespective of the various studying methods used by different students, there is something which is very similar to all of them. That is what is referred to as information resources. An information resource is an information-bearing document. Any document that carries any form of information that is useful to you is simply referred to as an information resources. An information resources comes in two categories. While some are in print form, known as the print resources, others are in electronic form, otherwise referred to as electronic information resources. While the print resources are those information resources which you can feel, you can touch, the use of them doesn't necessarily require the use of an electronic device. Examples like the textbooks you find in the library arranged on the shelves, the dictionaries, the encyclopedias. The electronic information resources, on the other hand, are those information resources in which access and use of them requires a student to have an electronic device, example, a computer, your handheld device, that is the handset. Examples of electronic information resources are those resources you find online, the web pages, the PDF files, the videos you watch on YouTube, audios which you listen to about recorded lectures are all examples of electronic device. Students are expected to make use of these two categories of information resources to achieve their information need within the system. Having understood this, it is important for students to realize that there is one particular place where you can find, be it an electronic information resources or the print resources, in order to support your academic objective. It is referred to as the library. When I say the library, it is very important for we to correct the notion or the perception several persons have about the library. What is the library? A library are collections of books, manuscripts, journals, and other sources of recorded information. Going back into history, the word library comes from liber, which is a Latin word book. A library, therefore, is an information environment that provides and enhances personal development and also influences students' overall academic performance. Just like I stated earlier, it is very important for we to correct the notion or the myopic perception being held by different students about what exactly a library implies. A library is not just a storehouse of books. A library is different from a bookshop or a bookstore. This is because the information resources found in a library are usually organized. A library is a complete institution that selects, organizes, preserves, stores, and also disseminates information resources. A library, if you must know, is a social institution. When we say a social institution, if you remember back to your class in secondary school, you were made to know that human being by creation is a social animal. What makes a human being a social animal? Their ability to interact by virtue of instincts, which make them higher than every other animal. Coming back to a library, we say a library is also a social institution because library provides you that social platform where you can easily come sit and interact with information resources. It is ordinarily believed that when you open a book, you could be reading a book and then smiling to yourself. And the next person sitting to you be wondering, what is wrong with him? Are you sure he hasn't run mental? No. That is because you are communicating with that particular information resources at that particular point in time. You could be reading a tragic novel and you find yourself probably shedding tears. And somebody passing to be wondering, what is wrong with you? Have you lost someone? No. You are communicating with the information resources and you are feeling the impact of the message being passed from that resources. So having understood this, it's also very important to also clear a different notion that when we talk about a library doesn't necessarily refer to that building where books are being stocked. Library can be in your pockets. The library can be in your room. The library can be there for you on the go. The major business of a library is nothing but the management of information resources. Therefore, anywhere, in any form, information resources is being managed and made available to you. It can be referred to be as a library. From the comforts of your room or hostel, you make use of your phone to access information resources online. You are browsing through a library that have been arranged online. Through a library's web portal or available web address, you can also browse through the resources of a library to be able to access information resources easily without necessarily coming into the library. This can be done within any time, be it in the daytime or at night. This is because the library have advanced from what it used to be in line with technology. Libraries, like every other organization, have been designed to achieve certain objectives. These objectives are there to guide libraries in the conduct of their affairs, and most importantly, to support libraries in satisfying the information need of the users. So like every other organizations, libraries have their own certain objectives, irrespective of the type of library, what functions they perform, how they go about their daily business. All libraries are expected to achieve the objective of the provision of information resources. And just like I earlier mentioned, the information resources comes in two categories, the print and the non-print. Most libraries in recent time provide these categories of information resources in order to satisfy the need of their users. It's also important for you to know that the kind of resources a library provide are very much in line with the type of users that patronizes that library. As we shall be coming to see while discussing the different types of library, it's also very important for you to know at this point that each library have their own type of users. Number two, among the objective of a library is the provision of information services. So aside from the provision of information resources, libraries also provide certain types of information services in order to satisfy the information needs of users. Often at times, a new user walks into the library confused about where to go, what to do. The reference librarian will always be there to serve your need. In the comfort of your home, information have been selected and disseminated to you in line with your own kind of information need. We call this SDI, Selective Dissemination of Information. When new arrivals, new resources are available in the library uses all the available means to ensure that people are aware. Awareness is being created about the existence of those new resources. All this is called current awareness services. There are several other services a library perform where a user is allowed to walk into the library using the circulation section to borrow an information resources, take it to their comfort in their home, their house, or read for a period of time, and then return the book to the library. All these and more are part of the several kind of services a library perform. Number three among the objectives of a library is the provision of conducive environment. As you will attest, virtually all the libraries provide at least tables, chairs, and a convenient environment where people can come to sit, read, and study. Convenient environments could mean a place strictly designated for people to come sit, consult the information resources in the library, and then go away. Conducive environments will also imply that a place designated where discussions, all forms of noise are taken away in order to allow the user to be able to concentrate and also derive more out of what they are reading or studying at every point in time. Having understood this objective of a library, just like the objectives of libraries also have functions. Libraries, based on their designs, are established to perform certain functions irrespective of the type of library and the kind of users they serve. The functions of libraries runs from identification and selections all the way to dissemination of informations. Talking about identification and selections is a very important function among all libraries, which implies that libraries are expected to ensure they identify and select the type of information resources that are directly in line with the information needs of their users. For instance, an academic library have several faculties departments within institutions of learning, and as a must, libraries are expected to select and develop information resources in order to satisfy the information needs of the student, staff, and researchers emanating from these faculties and departments. Therefore, libraries must on a regular basis identify and select relevant, current, and useful information resources that will assist in achieving the objective of the users. So with so many information out there in the world, in various topics, libraries are expected to vet properly and ensure the information resources selected are directly in line with the need of the users of the library. Secondly, among the functions of the library is what we refer to as acquisition. After identification and selection of resources comes acquisition. This refers to the series of activities the library undertakes in order to make information resources readily available in the library. It also involves various available channels through which information resources are also brought into the library. Talking about the various available channels, library acquire information resources through several procedures. First and very importantly, library purchase information resources. So on a regular basis, budget consisting of huge amount of money are usually allocated for the purchase of relevant and up-to-date information resources that will form a part of the library collection. Secondly, through exchange. This was formerly referred to as interlibrary. This is a form of agreement that allows a library across different areas, for instance, Bahrain University Library, Ahmadu Bello University Library, Federal University Ulssi Library, and several others, to be able to access the content of one another. This was made possible as a result of the fact that resources have become so expensive and inadequacies of financial budget allocated to different libraries have also led to libraries going into such arrangement in order to what? Share their information resources among themselves. Another process through which information resources are also being acquired into library is what is referred to as gift. Gift is a process that allows for individuals to gift information resources and other facilities to library for use by the users of the library. Even you, as a student, you can give a library a gift of a book, a gift of a computer facility, a gift in any form, so long as it will be useful to the library. Other than gifts, another process is what is known as donation. Donation, on the other hand, make it possible for corporate bodies, professional organizations such as Nigerian Bar Association, Nigeria Library Association, non-governmental agencies, even international organizations such as UNESCO, Book Aid International, the British Council, they all donate information resources to libraries. Another way through which libraries acquire information resources is what is known as legal deposits. This is the process backed by law that stipulates that certain number of books are deposited in a library. It mandates all publishers and authors to ensure compliance or face penalty for not complying. So when you write a book, it will be expected that certain copies, numbers, are given to the library free of charge. And finally, among the process for acquiring information resources to the library is what is known as bequest. Bequest. This is a gift left to the library in an individual's will. When people come to write in their will, they include library as part of the beneficiaries of their will. So over time, people are leaving a part of their estate or collections to ensure that it is being donated to the library when after they are long gone. Naming the library in a will gives the opportunity to make a lasting contribution to the library, be it small or intangible. It goes a long way in developing the library. In addition to the functions of a library is what is known as organization of information resources. Libraries must organize their information resources for ease of accessibility and use. Library resources are organized based on an accepted scheme for classifying and cataloging of materials. This gives a description of the library, materials, whether print or non-print, which are kept in the shelf list and in the online public access catalog. A well-organized library collection provides easy access and retrieval of materials through what is known as classifying and cataloging. So while a library classification scheme is a system of knowledge organization by which a library resources are arranged systematically and in line with a particular classification scheme, the purpose of a catalog is nothing but to identify the book or the information resources using the bibliographic details. Another purpose of a catalog is to distinguish them from other information resources. Aside from this, the library also performs the function of storage and preservation. This is very important for the continuous use and survival of the resources. So libraries, as part of their functions, must ensure that all measures are put in place for the proper handling of information resources, both old and outdated. Provision should therefore be made for the preservation of information resources be it in print form or electronic form. Talking about preservation, it is very important for the student to be aware at this point that when you walk into the library, you'll be faced with so many rules written on the door from the entrance all the way to the seats where you sit to consult the information resources. Rules ranging from do not eat, do not drink, do not chew. The do nots are so many. Why are these rules so important? Often at times, students walk into the library with biscuits and other eatables hidden in their pockets. For our women, hidden in their hijabs. By doing this, you are inviting rodents and other insects into the library. When night comes and the bell is being rung for people to step out of the library, the rodents and insects as lower animals doesn't understand what it means to ring a bell. You simply step out of library, but they remain. Later, the librarian comes and closes all the window. Sometime into the night, when the crumbs of biscuits and all the things you left on the floor are eaten, they go hungry, and their next attention will go to the books, and they go about eating the books on the shelf. So when you don't desist from bringing chewables or eatables into the library, you are inviting rodents into the library. As part of preservation and storage measures, libraries also ensure that information resources are not mutilated. Mutilation arises from different processes, which are mostly caused by students or users of the library. While you come into the library to consult information resources, be very careful on how you handle the books. Some student, while going through a particular textbook, realizes a particular page that carries so much information about an assignment. For selfish reasons, they may decide to tear that page and hide away from other users. Without the knowledge of the librarian, they return the book. But what you fail to realize is for generations to come, your relatives, your brothers, your sisters, your cousins will come to the library. And by coincidence, they could be given the same assignment. And when they go to consult in that book, when they open to that page and they see the page is not there, they'll be forced to say nothing but, lie, sir. May God punish you. This is what a lot of them will say. And that will continue for a very long time. So to avoid falling a victim of this, we are appealing to you. Do not mutilate libraries' information resources. And finally, among the functions performed by library is what is referred to as dissemination of information resources and services. Libraries make their services available because libraries are not just museums or storehouse of information resources. They are expected to disseminate their services to their numerous users through provision of easy access to these resources. In addition, libraries also provide information services such as selective dissemination of information, current awareness services, whereby they try to make you aware of the new arrivals, new information resources that are available in the library. There's also circulation services, which allows you to borrow information resources out of the library. The reference services are also there, where you can go and ask questions, and you'll be given answers. How do I consult my assignment? How do I structure my assignment? Which information resources can I best use for my assignment? Please guide me, where do I go? All these are reference questions, and the reference librarians will always be there to assist you. Library staffs are professionals, and they'll be very glad to assist in performing all these functions. Talking about the history of library, different perceptions have been held about the history of library. While some believe that a library is as old as man, other writers made an argument that the invention of writing and writing materials actually led to development of libraries. Talking about the writers that hold the first view, they are of the argument that the sole function of a library is simply that of information management and ensuring its availability for use when needed. By this, they imply that so long as what a library keeps is information, they made reference back to the past. At what time did man begin keeping information? And the simple answer to this is from the period man was created. Man began generating information and man began keeping information. The first means through which man generated information was through oral means. Man communicated among themselves orally, and this information had been stored in the brain. When references have been made, they consult the elderly within the family to tell them stories about the past. Those were the references, those were the sources, those were the information. So when people need to know more about their generation, need to know more about their society, since there was no book, there was no any means for documenting information as far as those periods were concerned, the only available means was to consult man. Man was the walking library. So hence they held the opinion that the creation of man marked the beginning of information, and by extension, the generation, storage, and its subsequent dissemination. All these were done by man in the past, before the coming of information resources upon which man began to manifest, writing, or document their activities. However, some others held the belief that the invention of writing materials gave birth to actual libraries. In the argument, they believe that the coming of writing materials, the books of the past, such as papyrus, those who wrote on clay tablets, those who wrote on the back of trees, others who wrote on parchment and volumes, all this gave library a meaning. These were people who referred to a library as a storehouse of information resources. So with the invention of a writing, originally by the Egyptians, during the Egyptian civilization, where they had the likes of hieroglyphics, and they began writing on papyrus, to the era of clay tablets, down to the period of the Roman civilization and even the Greek civilization, they all made use of papyrus, they made use of clay tablets, and they made use of the different types of writing tools. So by virtue of this, these writers held the argument that the development of these writing materials upon which a reference could be made even without man, people could go into a place to find what had been documented by man, could actually be marked at the beginning of library. In addition to our discussion into the history of libraries, from the period man was created, in the process where man developed a language of communication, and upon which all the ideas of man were communicated from one generation to the other through what was referred to as oral tradition, over time it was observed that due to the transitory nature of man, information by word of mouth communicated from one generation to the other could be distorted because man is forgetful. In the event of an eventuality, man passes away, all information are lost. By virtue of a natural disaster, a complete community is wiped away. All the information about the people, their origin, generation, and their achievements are usually lost. It then occurred to man on the need to document his own activities beyond the human brain. On this basis, man developed several tools upon which the activities of man could be documented. Notable among them were writing materials such as stones. Man wrote on stones in the past. Others wrote on the walls of cave. Several others wrote on the bark of trees. Later on, across different civilizations, vellum, parchment, clay tablets, and later papyrus were also developed and used by man across different civilizations. Down to the period in AD 105, when paper was finally invented, In China, information that were being shared among man was limited until the invention of paper. The coming of paper made it possible for information to be shared among people easily and cheaply. Knowledge and academic activities could be transferred from one person to the other with ease. The coming of paper was made prominent as a result of the invention of the movable type printing machine in the 1450s by Johannes Gutenberg and his associates. With the invention of the Gutenberg printing machine, it made it possible for information that were formerly wrote manually using hand to be printed on paper, all in identical copies, and several copies could be made within a short period of time. In the course of this civilization, several libraries were reported to have existed. The Alexandria Library is a famous library in Egypt. It contained probably the largest collection in the ancient world. Some reported it to be having over 400,000 items. Founded by King Ptolemy I before his death in 283 BC, his son Ptolemy II came over time and developed the library by expanding the library's collection. The texts in the library were transcribed onto one side of papyrus scrolls made out of an easily harvested and readily available reed from the Nile River. Ptolemy Soter II expanded the building in which he housed his flourishing collections. Another important library is the Pagamom Library. This library was founded by Attalus I. It also became a great center of learning. Situated in the Western Asia Minor, the place now referred to as Turkey, many scholars came here to study and teach. And for hundreds of years, the only library that could rival the library in Alexandria in size and scope of its collection was the library of the Kingdom of Pagan. This library was recorded to be having approximately over 200,000 volumes in collection. It came to be known as one of the most important libraries in the ancient world and was second only to the Library of Alexandria. Although there were, however, claims that this library got burned during a period of war by Julius Caesar of Rome, while others alleged that the content of the library was given to Cleopatra as a wedding present to add to the Alexandria Library by Mark Antony, the then ruler of Macedonia. Another important libraries that existed in the ancient time were the Roman libraries. After the conquering of Macedonia, the present-day Greece, in 146 BC, the Roman Empire acquired large collection of literatures from the Greek libraries. These literatures were scattered throughout the region. Roman officials often carried this literature back to their private homes as spoils of war. Roman Empire grew in wealth and power, and several Romans considered it fashionable to surround themselves with books As a mark of social distinction, it became highly fashionable to own a library. As a result, by 50 BC, many wealthy Roman families had developed extensive private library collections. Other than the Roman library, we also had Islamic libraries in the ancient time. The history of the libraries in the Islamic era was mostly attributed to the activities of the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This was in the 7th century. After his death, his followers transcribed his teaching into hadiths, and a lot of them were recorded on papyrus codex that quickly became the scripture within the Islamic religion. Believers were encouraged to read and commit substantial portion of the Quran to the memory. However, in subsequent decades, as armies of the successors conquered many territories, they took the religion of Islam and a commitment to literacy with them. They established libraries of sacred texts, especially in mosques such as Al-Aqsa in Jerusalem. Several rulers of the Islamic Empire also had, as part of their own possession, private personal library collections. As time went by, other libraries were also discovered within the African continent, which could be referred to as African libraries. These were libraries that later developed in the African continent by virtue of colonialism. All through the 20th century, several foreign organizations were at the forefront of developing libraries and information centers in Africa. Notably among them were the British Council, the Carnegie Corporation of New York, and the later abolished United States Information Agency, now referred to as the U.S. Department for International Development, DFID. As a result of their activities, most African countries in the 50s and 60s had their libraries modeled onto those of France, Britain, and Portugal. Although development of libraries in Africa were done along regional lines, their contributions spread across different African countries such as South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Gabon, Sierra Leone, and a host of others. Talking about the libraries in Nigeria, the history of Nigerian libraries are traced to the activities of the British colonialists. As part of their activities within the Nigerian territory, they were forced to open agencies, and as part of these agencies were attached libraries. Several schools also emanated as a result of the activities of the British missionaries, both primary and secondary schools. And at a later time, we also had high institutions of learning which had academic libraries attached to them. What then are the types of libraries within a Nigerian society? It is very important to mention at this point that the area today known as Nigeria long existed even before the coming of our colonial masters, the British, later identified as what is known as Niger area before the name was given to it as Nigeria. People existed in these colonies and they had a means of sharing information among themselves. This is referred to as oral tradition. Oral tradition simply implies a process for generation and transfer of information from one generation to another through the word of mouth. Stories were being told to us in the past by our great grandparents. They sit back to narrate the origin of their own society, the different great men that come and went as far as society is concerned, and some of the remarkable achievements that happened in the past. All these were narrated as part of stories that were being told orally by our great grandparents down to our generation, and these stories are hoped to be continued for generations to come. Over time, we have several types of library that exist within the Nigerian society. These types of libraries were determined by certain factors. The nature of their collection is a factor number one that could be used to determine a type of library. Each library have different types of collection. This collection, like I earlier stated, are determined by the information need of the users. The nature of a library is also determined by the pattern of services they render. As you move from one library to the other, the pattern of services they render varies from those libraries to the other. And importantly, are the users of the library. Each library have its own user. Going by the users of the library, you could be able to distinguish from one library to the other. A very good example, we have what is referred to as the school library. These are libraries located in lower institutions of learning. Who are the users of the school library? The pupils and the teachers. The opposite of a school library could be referred to as the academic library. Libraries located in higher institutions of learning such as universities, polytechnics, colleges of education. Who are the users of these academic libraries? The staff, the students, and the researchers. So going by the variations in the type of users, it could also be used to determine a type of library. So as far as type of libraries within Nigerian society is concerned, first and foremost among the type of library, we have what is known as the school library. These are libraries found in lower institutions of learning such as primary and secondary schools. When you go to most schools, you find a smaller place, a room attached to it known as the library. You find somebody in charge of the library, known as the librarian or the teacher librarian. Under a normal circumstance, you are supposed to find books, secondary school textbooks or primary school textbooks, which can be consulted and used by either the students or the teachers to support the curriculum which are being taught in those schools. We also have what is known as the public library. Public library ordinarily are referred to as the People University. These are libraries established to serve the need of every member of a community. Every state in Nigeria have a public library. Example is the Kano State Public Library, the Kogi State Public Library, the Kaduna State Public Library, the Lagos State Public Library. Every state in Nigeria have a public library. Every member of a community is a user of a public library. This is a library that doesn't discriminate based on race. It doesn't discriminate on race. It doesn't discriminate whether you are white or black. It doesn't discriminate whether you are educated or not educated. Social status, whether you are rich or poor. Religion, whether you are a Muslim or a Christian or a traditionalist. Whether you are Hausa or Igbo, a public library is meant for everybody, irrespective of where they operate. No, not everybody could access a school library unless you are a student in that school or you are one among the teachers. But a public library is meant for everybody. Number three among the types of libraries is what is referred to as the special libraries. Libraries established to serve and provide information need of persons within certain organization. They are regarded as special library because they provide special information resources to some special set of people. As the objective of different organizations varies, so are the types of information resources provided by those by libraries attached to them. Ministries, courts, banks, information centers all have libraries attached to them to provide their information need. And these libraries are very important as they serve their need on a regular basis. Another type of library that exists within the Nigerian society is what can be described as private libraries. These are libraries mostly owned and sponsored by individuals and families. In other words, they are private individual collections designed and maintained by individuals, personalities, and families for their own exclusive use. Although such usage may be extended to friends and others by the owners of such libraries. The private collections of some famous personalities in Nigeria actually formed the nucleus of some major libraries in Nigeria. Example, the famous Mumbai House Library contained the collection of the late politician and elder statesman Malang Aminu Kano. Also, the collection of Henry Carr after his death in 1945 was purchased by the Nigerian government to form the nucleus of the University College, Ibadan Library, now referred to as the University of Ibadan. Another type of library that also exists within the Nigerian society is what is referred to as the academic library. The term academic library is used to describe all libraries and institutions of higher learning, such as colleges of education, polytechnic, universities. Academic libraries select, acquire, organize, and preserve available resources for teaching, learning, and research. Academic libraries are ordinarily regarded as the heart of the university. This implies that without the heart, the human body cannot function. Therefore, without the heart, the library, an academic library, a university cannot function. And finally, we have what is referred to as national libraries. They have been developed to contribute their own quota to education, information, preservation of knowledge, and scholarship. There are libraries established to support a nation in the compilation of a comprehensive national bibliography, implementation of the book deposit law, enforcement of copyright law, and a host of other functions. A national library can also be referred to as a public library because it offers all the services of a public in addition to its own peculiar functions. University library, generally referred to as academic library. These are libraries located in high institutions of learning to support teaching, learning, and research. And like I stated earlier, they are regarded as the heart of the university. It is important for you to know at this point that just like the case of the chicken and the egg, which was the first that actually came into existence, the debate have been ongoing and it will forever be ongoing. So also is the case of the university as a system and the library, which informs the other. It is very important to understand this argument as no department or course of study ever commences in any university unless the required information resources needed to satisfy the information need of the student and staff within the department have been made available. It is upon this basis that the National University Commissions gives approval, what is ordinarily known as accreditation, to the commencement of any program or course of study within the university. This makes the university library an important component of every university system. It will also be right to say a university is as important as its library. A university is as rich as its library. In a bid to achieve the objectives of any university, University libraries are generally structured or organized into sections and departments. These sections and departments are established to support the smooth running of its affairs. Among the various sections found in most university libraries in Nigeria, we have what is referred to as the circulation section. This is a section whose activities revolves around lending of library books and other material to users of a library. The basic function of this department is to facilitate and monitor the circulation of books from regular collection. In addition, the department is usually responsible for circulating some books from other collections, as well as the circulation of non-book materials. In the circulation section, there is usually a circulation desk, which is typically located near the entrance of the library. It is there to ensure equitable distribution of materials among different users. As a result of this, circulation are established within libraries within a policy about who can borrow items, which items may be borrowed, for how long they may be borrowed, and what happens when an item is not returned as at when due. Some of the functions of the circulation section also revolves around what is described as charging and discharging of materials timely and with ease, show the eligibility of a borrower to enjoy a facility. The circulation also facilitates overdue alerts and notifies the user. The circulation also charges users for not returning an information resources borrowed as at when due. They keep statistics of the records of discharged books as well as the registered users of every library. Another important section found in university libraries is the reference section. This section houses the library's reference information resources. Examples of reference information resources are the dictionaries, encyclopedias, almanacs, atlases, maps, and a host of others. The reference resources are used to provide quick and accessible information on any particular topic a user so seek information into. The materials are usually used to find facts or provide broad overviews of topics. They are meant to be accessible to as many people as possible and as such are not permitted to be borrowed out of the library. That is the reference information resources. Reference services may vary from library to library, but most libraries have an information or reference desk where an assistant known as a reference librarian are usually available to answer all reference queries or questions. Among the functions of the reference librarian is to assist or provide instruction with using the library, as well as including locating materials, using the library catalog, or using the computers. They also perform the function of assisting in identifying library materials needed to answer a question. They provide brief, factual answers to questions such as addresses, statistics, phone numbers that will aid the conduct of any research. Other than the circulation and the reference section, we also have what is known as the serial section in a library. This section offers great access to the serial publications that are available in the library. Serial publications are referred to as publications issued in successive parts at regular or irregular intervals. Examples of serial publication is a newspaper, a journal, magazines. Very important among the serial collections that aid research in most institutions of higher learning are the journals. They are the most important to researchers because much of articles there found in a journal are product of extensive research with unique findings which may never appear in other types of information resources. As a result, academic libraries ensure they provide access to latest journals in order to support teaching, learning, and research. University libraries also have the reserve section. This section provides access to rare and materials that are usually in high demand. Some information resources are rare and several copies of them are no longer available, while other information resources are usually in high demand by students across different fields of study. As a result of these factors, these resources are not allowed to be borrowed or taken out of the library, as is the case with the circulation information resources. Therefore, reserve section houses or holds this type of resources, and access to them are provided upon the presentation of a means of identification, and a user is expected to make use of them within a stipulated period, usually hours, upon which they are expected to return it and then go back with it if there's so need in the event there is nobody waiting to use that particular information resources. We also have the e-library section, the electronic library section. This is the section of the library that provides users with access to computer facilities. These computer facilities are used to access electronic information resources. In addition, the e-library section provides users with access to free internet services where a user is expected to come with their computers or their handheld device to connect using a cable or to the library's Wi-Fi. In other cases, computers are provided for people who doesn't have a personal computer to themselves. There is also the special need section. This is also an important section in most academic library. As you may know, in every circumstance, there are always people with exception. There are always people who are special in nature by virtue of their own creation. The special needs section provides information to cater for the information need of persons with some form of physical challenge. They consist of the blind, the deaf, and others with other forms of physical deformities. As a result, in most academic libraries, the special needs section are usually located on the ground floor, which will allow the users to be able to move easily and conveniently. Their own types of information resources are also provided in order to suit their information need. There is also the reprographic section, which consists of different facilities in which services are offered to the users of the library at subsidized rate. Examples of those facilities consist of the photocopying machine, printing services. Users can equally go there to print and photocopy information resources. within the principle of fair usage in a bid to support their research activities. It is very important at this point for students to note that you are not allowed to photocopy an entire textbook, as you are going against the copyright law. You are violating the copyright law guiding that particular textbooks. Rather, for the sake of research, students are expected to photocopy only few pages, usually ranging between 7 to 15 pages of the textbook. Above that, you have been found to have violated the copyright rules. Having understood all we have been discussing, it is hoped that at this stage, a newly admitted student into Bayero University Kano should be able to go about their activities and also be able to find their way across the library in search of different information resources to support their academic activities. To better achieve your aims and objectives as a student in Bayero University, it is advised that the extensive use of libraries' information resources as additional learning materials outside the class notes is a key factor. Students are not allowed to be dependent on just the lecture notes or material given by a course facilitator. Every serious student is expected to make a wide and extensive research by reading into all the books of knowledge related to their field of study. Finally, as a student yearning for academic excellence, regular visit to and use of the resources of the library must be made a part of your daily routine. It is highly encouraged that a student must be renowned with their regular use of the library. By regular use of the library, it could be you visiting the physical library and accessing the library's information resources, or using your phone or your computer or any available ICT gadgets to access online information resources. In this way, you will be doing yourself a very good favor. On this note, I once again welcome you all to Bayero University, and I wish you the very best in the pursuit of your objectives. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.